They thought he was untouchable, a ghost in the shadows, shipping fentanyl and death across borders. For years, he slipped through the web of law enforcement, financing violence, corruption, and addiction. Until the night that changed everything. A squad of heavily armed naval officers storms a remote villa in Sinaloa. Gunfire erupts, and one of the world's most wanted, known only as El Pichón, falls. This is the story of how a global narco-terror network was dealt a lethal blow. The opiate ghost, how a billion-dollar death cult was exposed. Just days ago, Mexican naval forces, backed by intelligence from multiple agencies, raided a cluster of properties in the state of Sinaloa. The target, a clandestine drug production and trafficking network that had quietly become one of the biggest suppliers of fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin to the United States and beyond. The man at the center of it all, Pedro Inzunza Coronel, alias El Pichón. His name alone sent chills down the spine of law enforcement agencies on 2 continents. In May 2025, the United States Department of Justice, DOJ, formally indicted Inzunza Coronel, together with his father Pedro Inzunza Noriega, under charges of narco-terrorism, money laundering, and large-scale drug trafficking. The DOJ described their operation as one of the largest and most sophisticated fentanyl production networks in the world. The stakes were enormous. The drugs produced and trafficked by this network had fueled addiction, street-level violence, cartel wars, and the deaths of thousands. This was not just organized crime, this was narco-terror. 0 Hour, the firefight that ended the Shadow King. On the night of the raid, naval units supported by the Secretaría de Marina de México, Mexican Navy, La Marina, Secretaría de Seguridad y Protección Ciudadana, SSPC, and the Fiscalía General de la República, FGR, descended on properties located in the municipalities of Guasave and Ahome, Sinaloa. These locations were more than hideouts. They housed clandestine labs where synthetic drugs were produced, processed, and packaged for export. As officers approached, they were met with heavy armed resistance. Gunfire erupted immediately. According to official statements, the suspects opened fire, forcing security forces to respond in self-defense. In the ensuing firefight, El Pichón was killed. 2 of his alleged associates, including a logistics operator and a known sicario, hitman, were arrested. But that was just the beginning of what law enforcement uncovered. The deadly inventory, mapping the fentanyl factory. The homes and labs searched during the operation yielded shocking evidence of the scope and sophistication of the network. Multiple firearms, including handguns and even a grenade, were recovered. Large quantities of drugs, including fentanyl pills, methamphetamine in crystal form, and precursor chemicals, were found. Vehicles, communication devices, phones, and equipment consistent with clandestine drug production labs were seized, including a reactor and containers for processing synthetic drugs. Authorities described the crumbling of a supply chain, a logistical pipeline stretching from remote labs in Sinaloa to the streets of major American cities. In documents released by the DOJ earlier this year, the network was accused of trafficking tens of thousands of kilograms of fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin over the past years, establishing distribution routes across borders with the aid of money laundering operations, corrupt intermediaries, and a network of safe houses. In short, this was not a small-time cartel crew. This was a transnational criminal enterprise functioning with full supply chain capabilities, from production to distribution to money laundering and violent enforcement. The shadow chemistry and the Asian pipeline. What investigators found went far beyond simple drug packaging. The sheer volume of precursor chemicals, the necessary ingredients for synthetic opioids, was staggering. They discovered industrial-sized reactors capable of producing hundreds of thousands of fentanyl pills daily. This network wasn't sourcing small batches. They were running a full-scale pharmaceutical operation dedicated entirely to death. Crucially, the seizure included shipping manifests and unique chemical identifiers, providing a direct link back to suppliers in Asia. Intelligence suggests 80% of the network's precursors were smuggled from manufacturers in China and India, passed through complex Pacific maritime routes, and eventually landed in Mexican ports disguised as legal industrial polymers. This established that the operation was not just a cartel business, but a trans-Pacific chemical conspiracy, transforming cheap, legal compounds into high-value, lethal street drugs with devastating efficiency. The data recovered showed a seamless logistical loop. $1.20 worth of imported precursor could be converted into enough fentanyl pills to net $20,000 on the streets of New York, a profit margin that fuels the violence and corruption across multiple continents. The narco-terrorist label, Y El Pichón, was a global threat. Pedro Insunza, Coronel El Pichón, was no small-time dealer. He was a high-ranking operator tied to the Beltran Leyva organization, a faction historically linked to the Sinaloa cartel. His father, Pedro Insunza Noriega, alias Sagittario, also faced charges. Together they were labeled by the DOJ as narco-terrorists, the first time such public designation was made against members of the Sinaloa cartel. According to US authorities, their network oversaw one of the largest fentanyl production and trafficking operations ever documented. Labs in Sinaloa, supply routes across Mexico, and smuggling corridors into the United States, distributing synthetic opioids, methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine. Over the years, their product flooded communities, fueling addiction crises, cartel-driven violence, extortion, kidnapping, and societal collapse. Their operations were characterized by extreme secrecy, ruthless enforcement, and a sprawling logistic apparatus. For US authorities, labeling them narco-terrorists marked a turning point, signaling that cartel violence and drug trafficking had escalated from organized crime to acts akin to terrorism because of their transnational impact, violence, and destabilizing effects. The death toll, fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. The decision to label the Insunza organization as narco-terrorists was not rhetorical. It was rooted in the sheer, devastating scale of their devastation. Their fentanyl, often mixed into other drugs without the user's knowledge, acted as a silent weapon of mass destruction. Data showed that in the last 2 years alone, his network was directly linked to overdose deaths exceeding the population of a small American city. This staggering figure confirmed the government's stance. This was not merely supply and demand. This was the deliberate inundation of foreign communities with lethal product to cause maximum social chaos and secure political influence, the definition of transnational terror. Furthermore, their violence was strategic. Unlike random street crime, the organization used systematic kidnappings, targeted assassinations of rivals and officials, and widespread intimidation, all engineered to enforce silence and secure their multi-billion-dollar logistic lanes. They weaponized corruption, spending an estimated $5 million annually in bribes to maintain their immunity and secure their shipping corridors. This takedown was an attempt to dismantle not just a drug operation, but a state-level threat that actively targeted democratic stability across multiple nations. The ripple effect, why the slaying matters on streets 3,000 miles away. This operation isn't just a local police success, it's a global statement. With the elimination of a key node in one of the largest fentanyl production networks, the flow of synthetic opioids, meth, cocaine, and heroin across borders suffers a serious blow. The seized labs, chemicals, and distribution infrastructure represent a disruption of an entire supply chain. The arrest of accomplices and the dismantling of logistic networks will hamper the ability of the cartel to recover quickly. For US and Mexican cooperation, this operation proves that cross-border intelligence, coordination, and commitment can yield results, even against deeply embedded, violent criminal organizations. Moreover, by calling these traffickers narco-terrorists, authorities send a signal. Drug trafficking is no longer just a crime, it's a destabilizing force with global reach. Their fall is not just a win for law enforcement, it's a chance to prevent hundreds, thousands of deaths, addictions, and social decay. The wages of death, the true cost of a $1 billion empire. Behind every seized kilogram, every lab, and every seized shipment, there are human lives, the addicts, the victims of overdose, the young people whose futures were stolen, families destroyed by violence and addiction. Cartels like the one led by El Pichón thrive not only on drugs, but on suffering. They exploit poverty, corruption, and weak institutions. They weaponize desperation, turning human vulnerability into a stable, high-yield investment model. They hide behind violence and profit. By tearing down one of their strongest pillars, authorities strike not just at a criminal cell, but at a system that thrives on fear, silence, and destruction. A true victory requires starving the demand and healing the wounds of poverty and instability that feed this monster. But dismantling a cartel is only one battle in a larger war. Supply lines change, new leaders emerge, production spreads to different labs, smuggling routes evolve. Without robust social, economic, prevention, and rehabilitation policies, the cycle may repeat. The adaptive enemy, the warning buried in the victory. The death of El Pichón does not mark the end of the drug war, but perhaps a turning point. It shows that even the most entrenched narco-terror networks are vulnerable if the political will, international cooperation, and intelligence work align. Yet this victory carries a warning. Cartels are adaptive. When one leader falls, another may rise. Labs may relocate. Supply chains may shift. Corruption may persist. The global demand for drugs remains. This takedown is a blow, a powerful one, but not a knockout punch. Breaking the cycle of silence. If you believe that global drug trafficking isn't just a foreign problem, but a shared threat, spread awareness. Demand transparency, accountability, and cooperation across borders. Support efforts for treatment, rehabilitation, and education to reduce demand. If you're in a community affected by drug abuse, reach out. Support local initiatives. Help those struggling. Silence, complicity, and denial are part of what fuels criminals. But knowledge, solidarity, and action can fight back. Because every lab destroyed, every trafficker removed, every addict helped, keeps another family from breaking apart, another life from being lost. The silence of the machines. They thought he was untouchable, but tonight El Pichón is gone. His empire, fractured, compromised, exposed. For a moment, the machines behind fentanyl and death fall silent. But the war may just be beginning. Stay alert, stay informed. Because if we don't, the next El Pichón may already be rising.